Hi, welcome back to Joe Blogs. In today's episode, I want to give you an update on what's going on in Argentina. If you've been following the channel, you'll know that Argentina has been in a state of crisis for some time. In February 2023, inflation passed the 100% mark. And unfortunately, over the course of the last 6 months, things have got progressively worse. And the current rate of inflation is running at 113%. And in an effort to try to tackle that high rate of inflation, the Central Bank of Argentina has been progressively increasing interest rates, and they are now running at 118%. And the problems that Argentina is having with inflation have had a devastating effect on the value of the Argentine peso, and the authorities have now announced a devaluation of the currency. So this is a situation where you have to change the exchange rate in the international markets to reflect the fact that your currency is crashing. And the reasons that Argentina is in such a financial mess are multiple. Firstly, it's a net importer. So alongside a lot of other countries that we've discussed on the channel, Argentina suffered from the fact that commodity prices rose dramatically in 2021 and 2022. But alongside what was happening in the international markets, Argentina has created its own problems with political mismanagement and running up high levels of debt. So in today's video, we'll provide you with an update of what's going on with inflation and interest rates. We'll have a look at the devaluation of the peso and what's going on with what's known as the blue dollar, which is the black market exchange rate between the Argentine peso and the US dollar. There is a high level of dollarization in the Argentine economy right now. I'll give you an update on what's going on with regards to the presidential election that's due to take place in October 2023. We've seen a really surprise result where a controversial far-right candidate who wants to scrap the central bank and the Argentine currency has now taken the lead. We'll have a look at what's going on with wages in the country, the balance of trade, the country's current account, and the current situation with regards to the outstanding amount of debt that Argentina has. And then finally today, I'll wrap up with my summary as to what I think is likely to happen in the Argentine economy over the course of the next 3 to 6 months. This chart shows the movement in the rate of inflation in Argentina over the course of the last 12 months. So as you can see from this chart, inflation is a long-standing problem in Argentina. In August 2022, the official rate of inflation was 78.5%. That is off the scale. Over the course of the last 18 months, we've been talking about rates of inflation in the Western world of between 7 and 10%, causing major problems for the economy. But the rate of inflation in Argentina 12 months ago was 10 times those levels. And unfortunately, from Argentina's point of view, over the course of the last 12 months, inflation has got progressively worse. And the current rate of 113% means that prices in Argentina today are on average over double what they were this time last year. And to put Argentina's current rate of inflation into perspective, this chart shows the current inflation rates for the G20, the largest 20 economies in the world. And as you can see, Argentina is top of the shop, and the current rate of 113% is significantly more than double the country with the next highest rate, being Turkey, at just under 48%. And if we compare Argentina with the rest of the world, you can see that the country with the highest rate of inflation right now is Venezuela, with just under 400%. The next highest is Lebanon with 254%. And if you're interested in finding out what's going on in those two countries, check out the videos that I posted recently. Syria has the third highest rate of inflation at 139%, and Argentina is number 4 on this list. It's the 4th worst performing country in the world with regards to prices, which really puts into perspective how serious this situation is. Now you may be sitting there thinking, well, is this really news? Don't countries like Argentina always have ridiculously high rates of inflation? You can see that this time 10 years ago, inflation was running at around 10%, which admittedly is quite high compared to the rates that we're talking about for the Western world. And over the course of the last 10 years, inflation has remained above 10%. However, if you look at the shape of this chart, you can see that prior to 2022, inflation in Argentina ran at levels between 10% and 60%. However, during the course of 2022 and 2023, we have seen a sharp increase in inflation. And the current rates that are being experienced in Argentina are unprecedented and are completely unsustainable. When an economy gets to this situation where prices are more than doubling year on year, that means that you've got a full-blown crisis and something drastic needs to be done to avoid that economy completely collapsing. Now, as I'm sure you'll be aware if you follow the channel, the way that most central banks deal with high rates of inflation is to increase interest rates. And this chart shows the movement in the official rate of interest in Argentina over the course of the last 12 months. So you can see that this time 12 months ago, the official rate of interest was 75%, which is obviously extremely high. Over the course of the last 12 months, we've been talking about rapid, aggressive interest rate increases in countries such as the USA, the UK and Canada. However, the official rate of interest in those countries is currently running at around 5%. So 75% is completely off the scale. But as we've just seen from the inflation chart, this time last year, inflation in Argentina was running at 71%. So despite the fact that interest rates were already at 75%, the Argentine authorities took the decision to keep increasing interest rates. And you can see that between March and May 2023, interest rates were increased from 75% to 97%. However, those interest rate increases didn't have the desired effect. Argentina didn't see a fall in its inflation. And on the 14th of August, the Central Bank of Argentina increased interest rates by 21% to the current rate of 118%. And to put that into perspective, this chart compares the official rate of interest for all of the countries in the G20, which are the largest 20 economies in the world, of which Argentina is one. And you can see that Argentina's interest rate of 118% is more than 10 times higher than the next highest country, which is Turkey, which has an official rate of interest of 17.5%. And if we compare the current interest rate in Argentina to the rest of the world, the only country that has a higher official rate of interest is Zimbabwe, where the interest rate is 150%, and Zimbabwe is an economy that collapsed many years ago. The next highest rate is Venezuela at 55.78%. And if you've been following the channel, you'll know that I've posted a number of videos on Venezuela, and the economy is also in a state of collapse there, predominantly as a result of the sanctions that have been applied against the country. And then the next highest rate is Ghana with 30%. And these tables really highlight how serious the problems in Argentina are right now. Argentina's current rate of inflation is the 4th highest in the world, and its interest rates are the 2nd highest in the world. And the problem from Argentina's point of view is that even though it's got extremely high rates of interest, that simply isn't solving the inflation problem, and inflation is still on the rise. So this is an economy that is sitting on the verge of collapse. This chart shows the official exchange rate between the US dollar and the Argentine peso over the course of the last 12 months. And this shows that 12 months ago, $1 US was officially trading for 133 Argentine pesos. However, today the official exchange rate is almost 350 Argentine pesos. And you can see on the far right hand side of this chart that there is a vertical movement in the exchange rate. And this represents the devaluation that the Argentine Central Bank introduced on the 14th of August. Prior to the devaluation, the official exchange rate for $1 US was 288 pesos, but the Argentine bank took the decision to introduce an 18% devaluation to reflect the significant fall in the value of the peso. And of course, one of the main reasons why the peso has been devaluing in the international market so rapidly is because of the high rates of inflation and the problems with the Argentine economy. The exchange rate between two currencies is relatively complicated. However, the predominant factor is demand for that currency. If your economy is doing well and other countries want to invest into your country and buy your products, then there will generally be demand for your currency, and that will send the value of your currency up. However, if the reverse applies, if your economy isn't doing well, nobody wants to buy any of your exports and nobody wants to invest into your economy, then there will be no demand for your currency and so the value will fall. And that's the situation that Argentina is in right now. Because of the mess that's going on in the country, nobody wants to put large amounts of investment in, nobody wants to buy its products, and therefore the value of the currency has crashed. But in addition to those supply and demand dynamics, we've also got a problem with dollarization. Because when you have high rates of inflation, when prices are more than doubling year on year, people no longer want to be paid in Argentine pesos. Because if you're being paid in pesos and prices are doubling, you need your wages to be doubling just to keep your current standard of living. And that's not happening in Argentina. The average increase in wages over the course of the last 12 months is running at 5.7%, which is obviously significantly lower than 116%. So in real terms, the cost of living is rising and people's standard of living is falling. But it's not just wages that are a problem when you have high rates of inflation. It also impacts on your savings. If you have all of your life savings in Argentine pesos, let's say you've got 100,000 Argentine pesos in the bank, compared to this time last year, your life savings today are worth less than half what they were worth this time last year. And when you look at international exchange rates, the value of your savings is falling on a daily basis. So one of the ways to avoid the devaluation of your savings and the currency is to start using US dollars. Because if you're being paid in US dollars or you have your savings in US dollars, you don't have to worry about what's happening with the Argentine peso. There can be a massive devaluation in the peso, but if all of your money is sitting in US dollars, you don't care. And that's exactly what's happening in Argentina right now. A large percentage of all transactions are taking place in US dollars. People want to be paid in dollars, they want to hold dollars, they want to spend dollars. And as a result of this, there is a huge black market in US dollars in Argentina. It's referred to as the blue dollar, and the exchange rate between the peso and the blue dollar is very different to the official exchange rate. This chart shows the black market exchange rate for the US dollar and the Argentine peso over the last 5 years. And as you can see, the current black market exchange rate is $1 for 675 Argentine pesos, which compares to the official exchange rate of 350 Argentine pesos. So the black market rate is almost twice as much as the official rate. And the problem that Argentina has is that the black market rate is actually the rate that all of the deals are being done at. Nobody is doing deals at the official rate. If you have $1, that's worth almost 700 Argentine pesos on the black market compared to 350 for the official markets. So as a citizen of Argentina, your spending power is twice as much in the black market as it is on the official rates. So nobody in their right mind would use the official rates. Everybody's using the black market rate. And if we look at this chart, the last time the black market rate was trading for around 350 pesos was December 2022. So what this tells us is that the official exchange rate in Argentina is lagging significantly behind the black market rate. And even though the authorities have devalued the currency by 18%, that doesn't really reflect the actual value of the Argentine peso. The real value in the markets is closer to 700 pesos. So in order to bring the Argentine peso in line with where the market actually is trading, the Argentine authorities would have to bring in 100% devaluation. They would need to bring the official exchange rate to around 700. And once again, this highlights the severe problems that Argentina has right now. In order to sort out its currency, there is a lot of pain that the Argentine authorities will have to bear.
A far-right libertarian unexpectedly won Argentina's primary vote on Sunday, shaking up the race for the presidency in Latin America's third largest economy. Javier Milei, a rock-singing economist who wants to dollarize the economy and acts the central bank, won more than 30% of Sunday's vote. The result marks a stinging rebuke to the country's two main political forces, the ruling Peronist coalition and the Together for Change conservative bloc.
Estamos frente al fin.
Addressing his supporters in Buenos Aires, Milei said it was clear that the country was ready for change.
Today we are the most voted force because we are the true opposition. We are the only ones who want a real change. Because remember, a different Argentina is impossible with the same old people. With the same old people who have always failed. With the same old people who have been failing for 100 years.
Milei will compete in a three-way race in October against the Peronist coalition candidate and economy minister, Sergio Massa. Also in the running is the former security minister, Patricia Bullrich, who won the main Conservative Together for Change nomination. Argentina's economic crisis has left many people disillusioned with the main political parties. Inflation is running at 116%, and a cost of living crisis has left 4 in 10 Argentines in poverty.
This chart shows the movements in the balance of trade for Argentina over the course of the last 12 months. And the balance of trade basically measures the difference between the value of your exports, so the money that you're earning for selling goods in the international markets, and the cost of your imports, so the price of everything that you're buying in. And the scale on the right hand side of this chart goes from $2 billion positive at the top to $2 billion negative at the bottom. And what this chart shows is that in 7 of the last 12 months, Argentina has recorded a negative balance of trade, so the cost of its imports have been higher than the value of its exports. And over the course of the last 9 months, there has been a significant downward trend. If you were to draw a trend line for the period since October 2022, it is significantly downwards. And in every one of the last 4 months, Argentina has recorded a negative balance of trade, and the combined figures for the 2 most recent months are a negative total of around $3 billion. And the impact of that negative balance of trade is now showing up in Argentina's current account, which is essentially the bank account for the country. This is the running total of the amount of money that Argentina has. It's similar to your checking account. And the most recent figures that we have, which are for the first quarter of 2023, show that Argentina posted a current account deficit of $5.6 billion, which is the biggest since the third quarter of 2018, and a significant widening from the $1.5 billion deficit recorded at the end of 2022. Now, we don't yet have the official figures for the second quarter of 2023, but given the balance of trade numbers that we've just looked at, it's extremely likely that the current account deficit has got significantly worse. And this is a major problem from Argentina's point of view because it means it's running out of cash, and Argentina has large debt repayments that are due during the course of 2023. This chart shows Argentina's total debt dating back to 2015, and we've got 4 different categories showing on these bar charts. The largest category, which is the dark blue section at the bottom, relates to government debt, so that's the official amount of money that the government has borrowed from international sources. We've then got household debt, which is relatively small, corporate debt, which relates to all of the corporate borrowing from the companies in Argentina, and then finally the financial institutions is shown at the top. And what this shows is that over the course of the last 8 years, Argentina has had high levels of debt, but the amount of government debt, so the official borrowing of the country, has increased significantly. Back in 2015, total debt across all 4 categories was around $375 billion, and the government portion of that was around $220 billion. Today, the total amount of debt is running at around $500 billion, and the government debt is now above $400 billion, which means that over the course of the last 8 years, the government debt has increased by more than 80%. And the $400 billion of debt that Argentina currently owes includes the current $43 billion facility that's been agreed with the IMF. So that bailout facility represents around 10% of the total borrowings. So it really puts into perspective the sheer amount of debt that Argentina has right now. Now, unfortunately for Argentina, debt comes at a cost. You have to pay interest and you also have to pay repayments on that debt. You have to give the money back. And this chart shows the scheduled debt service payments that Argentina has to make over the course of 2023. And the colour coding here shows the 4 different types of debt that Argentina is having to service. At the very bottom of all of these bar charts in dark blue are the bonds that Argentina have issued in the international markets. Above that section are loans from international financial institutions. The third section, which is the largest section on most of these bars, are payments due to the IMF. And then at the top, we've got other payments. So if we start off by looking at the situation for June, you can see that Argentina is scheduled to make around $4 billion of repayments, and $3 billion of that is due to the IMF. In July, the total payments that are due are around $4.25 billion, and once again, around $3 billion of that is due to the IMF, and around $1 billion to the bondholders. In August, the scheduled debt payments are around $1 billion, split roughly 50-50 between the IMF and other debt. The repayments in September are around $2 billion, with around half of that coming from the IMF. In October, the amount is $3 billion, with the lion's share of it due to the IMF. In November, it's $1 billion, with around half of it due to the IMF. And in December, Argentina has to find around $1.75 billion, and around 2/3 of that is due to the IMF. So if we take a step back and have a look at the overall situation here, over the course of the next 7 months, Argentina has to find $17 billion just to meet its debt servicing requirements. And the problem that the country has is that it doesn't have any cash. It's run out of foreign currency. And so making these payments is going to be a major problem from Argentina's point of view. And the only way realistically that they're going to be able to settle all of these obligations is by drawing down more money from the IMF, which obviously from the IMF's point of view isn't what the money is intended for. The discussions with the IMF are about trying to get the Argentinian economy back on track, getting to the point where the country becomes self-sufficient and can stand on its own 2 feet. Drawing down debt to repay debt is just robbing Peter to pay Paul. It's kicking the can down the road. It doesn't solve any of the fundamental problems in Argentina, and that is going to be a major sticking point from the IMF's point of view. And so there is a very real chance that Argentina could default on its debt obligations. So what's the summary and conclusion today? Well, I wanted to post this video to give you an update as to what's happening in Argentina right now. Now, I've posted a number of videos on Argentina, and unfortunately, throughout the course of those videos, things have got progressively worse. We have seen inflation pass 100%, but unfortunately, it hasn't stopped at that level. It's continued growing. And the current rate of 113% means that Argentina now has the 4th highest rate out of any country in the world. And in order to try to address those problems, the central bank has been doing its best. It's been increasing interest rates to try to discourage people from spending. And the official rate of interest in Argentina is now 118%. So that means that if you wanted to take out a loan, if you were interested in buying a car and you thought, I'll go down to the bank and take out a loan, the interest rate on that loan would be more than 118%, because the banks are borrowing at 118%. They would have to put some profit margin on top of that. This is completely ludicrous. Nobody in their right mind in Argentina would be taking any loans at the moment. So you might be thinking, well, this is a great opportunity for people to put money into the bank and then earn lots of interest. If you're going to get paid 118%, happy days. But if you look at what's been happening to the currency, the value of the peso has crashed. This time last year, the official rate of interest was 131 pesos to $1. Today, it's 350. So that represents a fall in value of around 2.7 times. So if you'd have left your money in the bank, you'd actually have seen a net reduction in the value of that money, even if you had been paid large amounts of interest. But actually, the real situation is much, much worse than that, because the official exchange rate doesn't represent the real value of the peso. The black market rate, or the blue dollar, tells us really what the peso is worth. And the exchange rate on the black markets right now is closer to 700 pesos to $1. So that means that if you had left your money in the bank, you would have seen a significant reduction in the value of that capital. And that's why the majority of people in Argentina right now are looking to use the US dollar. There has been a complete loss of faith in the Argentine peso. Nobody wants to be paid in it. Nobody wants to hold their savings in it. Everybody wants to use the dollar. And unfortunately, from Argentina's point of view, the less people that use the peso, the worse it's going to get. Inflation is likely to continue skyrocketing, and the value of the peso in the international markets is likely to continue falling. And as a result of this, one of the new presidential candidates, Javier Milei, who we saw earlier in the video with the impressive sideburns, has actually proposed scrapping the Argentine peso and for Argentina to move wholesale to using the US dollar. And this guy is now leading the polls. This idea, alongside some of his other proposals, are really capturing the imagination of the Argentine people. They have seen their economy going down the toilet for a long period of time, and they've decided that they want some radical change. And so this guy is now coming to the forefront, and we could see some major changes taking place in Argentina if he wins power. Javier Milei is an outspoken, controversial character, He's been compared in the press to being a little like an Argentine version of Donald Trump. And this guy's trying to lead a political revolution to introduce significant change into Argentina. Now, the presidential election isn't until October 2023. So it will be fascinating to see what happens in that presidential election over the course of the next couple of months. But the overall summary of today's video is that the situation in Argentina is currently critical. The economy is standing on the edge of the abyss. Inflation is continuing to get worse. Interest rates are off the scale. The value of the peso has collapsed. Argentina has a negative balance of trade, is running out of cash, and has huge debt repayments. So there is a very serious possibility that Argentina could default on its debt obligations. And if that did happen, Argentina would need another bailout. However, unfortunately, from Argentina's point of view, it's already had a bailout. It's got the largest loan in the world out of any country that's been taking money from the IMF. So the situation in Argentina is bad right now, and unfortunately it's getting worse. And there is a distinct possibility that we're going to see a change of power in Argentina, and that some radical ideas could be introduced into the country at some point over the course of the next few months. So hopefully you found today's video useful, informative and thought-provoking. If you've liked what I've said, then please give me a thumbs up. Thank you for watching this video all the way through to the end, and here's something to put a smile on your face.